Hi, I'm Tim Ellis. Thanks for joining us for Laneway Live. Tonight we have two special guests, a magical duo who have amassed a veritable show business empire. Please put your hands together and welcome the showmen, Sam and Justin. Well, welcome. You guys look like you look like you're backstage at your own show.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We have massive posters of ourselves backstage. It helps motivate us.
Yeah, it's always motivating seeing yourself before you go out on stage.
Yeah, we usually just have a big mirror for Justin.
Yes.
And then, that's all we request.
Yeah. Gotta make sure my hair's right.
So where are you located now? Are you in lockdown together?
Yeah, that's right. So at the moment we're recording from our warehouse space that we have in Preston, so in Victoria. We're back home. And we've just started moving and working from this space this year. And we've sort of locked down here as work, and we're also bunking together as well. Yeah.
Yeah, same bed, different blanket.
Yeah, that's
separate rooms.
Wash those sheets. All right. So you guys were about to embark on like your best year ever when the coronavirus hit.
Yeah, we put everything into it. So 2019, we did a bunch of different festivals like Comedy Festival, Magic Festival, Melbourne Fringe and stuff. And then we were like, for 2020, let's go all in. So we started booking ourselves with anything we're available for. So, you know, Perth, Adelaide, Brighton, Scotland. We're trying to get into Paris, Prague, like all these different fringes. And we're locking them all in. It was all great. Like New Zealand as well.
Yeah,
and
we pretty much printed off like 12 months, like calendar. We put it on the wall and we were like, all right, we need to fill in as many of these dates as possible. And we just like looked up all the fringe festivals, all the arts festivals, all the comedy festivals. And we're like, well, this one's pretty big. This one's pretty big. These dates work. And we pretty much mapped out the entire year to just remain as busy as possible. And we made it to March.
You were just about to head to New Zealand, weren't you?
Yeah, so we had finished Adelaide Fringe on like the Sunday, and we were due to fly out on like Tuesday or something. And like during that last week is when it all sort of happened. And like when Comedy Festival got cancelled, and then they announced the travel restrictions to New Zealand like on the weekend. Like we were literally checking every 30 minutes, and it was updating by the hour. We were like, shit, I don't know if we're going to be able to even get into the country. And then eventually it was like, you have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So we obviously couldn't do the shows, and we had to cancel. Our first shows ever.
Yeah.
Well, you're not alone.
Crazy. Yeah.
We're all in it together. All performers.
Definitely. So for the people who don't know you, I can give a little bit of background on Sam being our junior close-up champion of Australia of Magic in 2011.
That was like back in.
Came second in 2010, but you know, first in 2011.
Don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about 2010. Greatest from everyone's memories.
You're not first, you're last.
Didn't happen. Well, that's how it sort of all started. This whole journey that we've been on was back then at Magic Fest in 2010, where I did compete in both. I came second to, I think it was Tim Mason probably that year, maybe even Dom. I think it was his last year. And then, the next 2 years was when I won the junior championships in close-up. And it was on that second year that I first met Justin, and then chaos ensued. Pretty much.
Justin, it all went downhill from there.
Were you Justin a visitor to the festival, or what was how did the connection happen?
Yeah, so I heard about it for a few years, and I was really keen to go check it out. And I thought I'll go check it out, and went there and watched the juniors perform. And I saw Sam perform and won. And then straight after it, I was like, I saw him in his bright yellow jacket.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him and said, Sam, I'd really love to like hang out and potentially work together. I think would work together really, really well. Because I'm silly and crazy and out there, and he's more, proper, and it's a good dynamic, I guess. And so he said, yeah, cool, who are you?
Just this crazy, dreaded surfer guy. We actually have a photo of that competition, which we can cut to in
It'll slide in here.
Yeah. It was the first photo we ever took together, and we looked young as shit. And we still use it in our shows to this day, which is pretty cool.
How we met.
Yeah.
Wow. And the interesting thing though, because your background, Justin, is more circus. You used to do a bit of magic as Justin Case, and balloons, of course, but it was more circus, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was always into magic. I think my first show was like magic when I was a kid, but I always did circus as well because I was the kid with a very short attention span and kind of learnt any skill that I could thought was cool, and I'd practice it and learn it and just try and get good at it. And then, magic kind of took over. I did busking on South Bank for a few years with Kellen Harris, who's now an amazing circus performer traveling in all the fringes. But when I met Sam, it was just like, magic's kind of what I want to really focus on because I think that's what I enjoyed the most, but I just didn't know back then. And kind of went from there.
And it wasn't much longer after wasn't much longer after that you did your first show together, Mesmerized, the Theatre Spectacular.
That's right, which was
Which was something.
It was our first time. It was very much our first time, but it was I think it was really good. We've still got the video of it.
It's so cringeworthy.
Sometimes we just watch it and we're like, but back then it was the best thing. We were so proud of it. It was crazy, but it's also amazing seeing how much we've developed and changed from that time. We've just learned so much, different audiences, what actually we need to put into the show, what's actually good, and not just back then. Looking at it now, it's pretty crap, but it was all a learning curve, and it was still lots of fun.
Well, you were both about 15 then, though, weren't you?
So bomb drop. Yeah. Justin's actually 7 years older than me. I don't know if people knew that.
Yeah. Everyone always thinks he's my age, or anyone who thinks I'm his age. It's crazy.
So back when we did Mesmerized, I was 14 and Justin was 21. So
So and I had a van, so I drove us to all the gigs.
Yeah, he drove to all the gigs.
Driver.
We would rehearse at late nights because I would go to school all day and finish at about 3:15. Justin would pick me up in this blue van. This hippie guy picking me up in this blue van. We go to his house, rehearse literally until 2, 3 in the morning, and then he'd drive me home. And then I'd have 4 hours sleep, wake up, go to school, and we just did that every day. Because back then we were just rehearsing every single day for hours on end.
Our diet was Red Bulls and Subway.
Yeah.
Has your diet changed much since the Subway and Red Bull?
Yeah, now it's coffee and burritos.
Yeah.
Much healthier.
Yeah. Well, it's always just that one staple food that was just well, back then it was Subway, it's grown into burritos.
Yeah.
And we have gotten healthier, I think. Coffee's healthier than Red Bull.
Yes.
Marginally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Sam was, according to Justin, the very serious close-up magic-y guy. But I know this is, you've rubbed off on each other. You've become a little more loose since hanging out with Justin.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's the cause of the greatest magic show.
Yeah, basically. We still try and keep that dynamic, but it's good because now I have the freedom as well to sort of break from the serious character when the show suits it and then go a little bit funny and a little bit silly. And, vice versa with Justin, sometimes he can break the serious thing and he can break the funny thing rather and actually turn serious, which is sort of cool. So now we're still serious and funny, but it's sort of blended together. Yeah. It's not like a straight edge sort of separation. It's sort of
Well, in 2014, you did Up Close and Personal, which was very much a straightforward close-up magic show. But at the same time, you paired up and did a stage show called Go Trick Yourself.
Yes, they were very different.
Yeah, it was. Go Trick Yourself was always the focus for that whole thing. It was because we took a year off between Mesmerize and Go Trick Yourself. So we had like all these original routines, like Cups and Balls on Fire, like just things that we were spending a lot of time figuring out how to do it. And yeah, Up Close and Personal was just sort of a little side project for me, which I really enjoyed doing, actually. Like it was all the best close-up tricks I'd ever learned. Because like up until then, even now, like still, but back then I was such a close-up magician, right? Like every new trick that would come on, I'd have to have it, I'd have to learn it. So it was like a nice little side project to me to just pump out in a little 50, 60 room venue while we're working on our duo at the same time.
I was the cameraman for.
He was the cameraman.
Up Close and Personal. I did a great job, by the way.
You mentioned the Cups and Balls on Fire. We'll just have a little look at a clip of that.
Now, moving on with our dedication to the classics of magic, Justin and I would now like to perform what is considered by many to be the greatest magic effect of all time.
Of all time.
The world famous Cups and Balls.
The Cups and Balls.
A routine literally performed by thousands of magicians all around the world.
All around the world. Oh, it's good.
It's been performed in almost every single country, breaking through all sorts of language barriers.
All sorts of language barriers.
And is considered by many to be the greatest magic effect of all
Of all time.
Dude,
What?
cut it out, okay? And be like, let go, just, okay? Yep. So ladies and gentlemen, the Cups and Balls, a routine performed thousands of magicians.
And I will always love you.
Seriously. No. Now, the Cups and Balls.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard and they're like, it's better than yours. And they're like, it's better than yours. They're like, it's better than yours.
Alright. Well, it's maybe okay. Yeah.
This time I'll slow it down for you a little bit so you can see what happens. Okay, here we go. A bit slower. Texas. Well, there's one left. Roman. Aye! Would you guys like to see all three balls disappear at once?
Would you guys like to see that? Would that be cool? Yeah! Come on, would you like to see that? Yeah!
How many balls under the center cup? One.
Right, tennis ball.
Is Justin and I's version of the modern day Cups and Balls. A routine which, as we said, is literally done by thousands of magicians all around the world. But, like everything else in tonight's show, Justin and I wanted to take this basic routine and push it one step further.
And light everything on fire. Because everything is better on fire.
In this industry.
Yeah.
In this industry, right? So kids, don't go trying what you're about to see at home.
Try it at school.
Yeah. Or a friend's place. What the hell? No, seriously, please leave everything you're about to see up to us, professional
Idiots.
Idiots.
Professional idiots.
Professional.
Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to perform this entire. This is our version of the Cups and Balls on Fire! Alright, go on number once. Alright. Okay, so for this routine, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to perform this routine with our bare leather skin gloves.
What? You think we're stupid? Here we're stupid.
It's real fire.
Ow!
Nice. All right.
Okay, sweet.
Good. Okay, now first things first, we need someone to check out the hat. Now, have a good look inside the hat, make sure there's nothing in there. Yeah, have a really good look. Alright, awesome.
Okay. Now, just like the routine before, the Cups and Balls on Fire starts off very much the same way, right? We start off by grabbing our metal tong.
Get off.
There we go. By placing each of the small balls underneath the cups, just like that. And then one by one, we take each of these small balls and we take them and make them disappear. Like magic, just like that. One by one, each of the small balls vanishing into thin air and reappearing back underneath the cups. Except this time, of course, a little bit bigger. Big ball.
Big ball. Ladies and gentlemen, big ball. Right there, what am I doing? Oh, alright. Alright, thank you.
As exciting as that was a little more impressive.
Actually appeared back underneath the cups, ladies and gentlemen.
Underneath the cups. Big ball.
Big ball. And another big ball.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, one thing to note about this routine is why you've all been paying very close attention to the cups.
You should have been paying a little bit more attention to the hat, because ladies and gentlemen, underneath the hat is our giant ball. That's on fire! Whoa! That's our version of the Cups and Balls on fire. Thank you!
There we go.
Yeah. Well, I think I always had a thing where I wanted to be so different to every other magician. I wanted to try and put something out there that was totally different, but stick to the like the classics. So I wanted to try and recreate all these different routines. And I said to Sam, let's do Cups and Balls on Fire. He's like, how? And I just explained to him, and he was just like, all right, well, maybe we could try this and do this. And we literally went to Bunnings and got sheets of metal, bent them in all different ways and drilled holes and everything. And it all happened. And then a few years later, we actually got a proper one built by a engineer.
Yeah.
And yeah, he made it incredibly with proper release of the gas and everything like that. And it works beautifully every time. Unfortunately, we don't do it anymore because we did it for so many years. And then we created that new show, Adults Only, and it just doesn't quite fit in there. So
yeah, it's not practical. We pretty much went through, when we first did it, it was literally like a metal box, and inside we had 3 shot glasses filled with metro, and like a little bit of firework coming out that we lit. Like that was the system. And
I remember.
Yeah, you're.
Of course you do. Yeah,
it was fine. It was perfectly safe.
We've done it many times since, and we've never had an accident.
It was just so funny, like, and the whole development of it, because we're like, well, we need metal cups with holes in the top. We went to Coles and found like those sifter things with the handles, and we're like, it's perfect. And we just used that, and that's what we used in the show. And then we tried it out the first time, picked up the cup, and just about burnt our hand because it was so hot. We put gloves on it, and we're using tongs
to lift
the
up
first
the cups.
time. Lift up the cups to load the big ball, like but with tongs at the same time.
We literally got that trick working a week before the Magic Festival, but there was no way we were going to take it out. We had no backup, so like we have to figure this out.
Yeah, I quite like it. And then we did an Adelaide Fringe last year, which is the last time we did it.
11 shows straight, 16 shows straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was with the gloves. And yeah, we actually, in one of the shows, we almost like said, because without giving it, all the loads, like all the big ball loads are like behind the table. And we almost had an incident.
But we did it.
But we didn't. We didn't. We were professionals, and we set nothing on fire, and nothing got damaged.
You had a plan. You had a plan B. You rehearsed your accidents, and you're ready.
You say pineapple.
Pineapple. All right. You had a safe word. That was it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking, just turning the table for a little bit. Fire has not always been kind to you, because in 2015 you had a very bad situation with your house.
A North Warrandyte family of 4 has had a lucky escape after their home was destroyed by fire overnight. The CFA says embers from an open fireplace sparked the blaze. Dougal Beattie reports.
A 3-storey family home engulfed by flames, burning out of control. CFA crews attacked the blaze front on, trying to contain the fire that took hold of the brick structure around 5 o'clock this morning. Moments after the house went up, a couple and their 2 teenage children ran from the property, neighbours woken by panic in the street.
First thing I heard was loud bangs and voices screaming.
The man was hospitalised with minor burns to the hand. The family dog also saved as crews laid a kilometre of hose along the street to gain access to water. Initial concerns from residents: the fire could threaten neighbouring homes.
You could see how very quickly the fire could have spread into, trees or other houses.
In the early morning light, it was clear the family's home had been completely destroyed. Their entire life possessions gone. The CFA believes embers from an unattended fireplace without a guard may have caused the blaze.
They were very, very lucky to get away with, unfortunately, with nothing, but they got away with their lives. So that's the important part about it.
Yeah, that's right. So midway through 2015, we had an open fireplace in the house, and in the middle of the night, an ember jumped from that, set the couch on fire, and long story short, the whole house burnt out. We pretty much left the house with the clothes we had on our backs, right? It was devastating. And everything that we had owned, like all our tricks and stuff, was stored at that house, right? So we had like a water tank, which was made out of like toughened glass, which literally like exploded in the fire. Like we had a rabbit cannon, like an old rabbit cannon. We had a head chopper. We had like all these tricks and illusions that we hadn't even put in the show yet, that I'd like just bought off Michael. And we pretty much had to start from scratch. And like Justin was in Southeast Asia at the time. Like he was traveling around, and I remember calling him, and it was just so surreal. But I will say, because like that weekend, or like the next weekend or something, like I had kids shows lined up, like I had gigs and everything. And the whole magic community, it was crazy. Like it was from like Dom, Nick, Casitas, like everyone at AIM like donated tricks. Even people like Taylor's Magic, even Dan and Dave sent me, like it was just, everyone came together. Lee Cohen drove me to the gig that weekend to like ease some pressure off my parent. Like it was amazing how everyone came together. And we were fortunately able to rebuild from that. It was actually probably a blessing not a blessing in disguise, but like it gave us, was sort of forced to start again. And we started again fresh, and we're much older this time. So we had like a lot of more ideas, fresh ideas, bigger ideas, more creative. Like we weren't locked into what we were already doing. We had the opportunity to completely start again.
Yeah, because we definitely would have been locked into doing those routines for a few more years, but because that made us refresh, we went back to the drawing board and picked out all these different routines that we could do, and it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Michael Boyd. You also, I guess, served an apprenticeship with Michael.
Yeah, so I started off as his duck boy in I think like 2011, 2012. He had 2 ducks. Yeah, Dom was doing the same gig, and he got me onto it. I was doing some dates down at Docklands, and I pretty much started off pinning up curtains and cleaning up duck shit for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then like next year, the year after that, I started working on some of his shows, like Crown Casino, theaters like that. And then when I was in year 12, my last year of high school, just out of high school, he brought me on as a PA. So I was pretty much sitting 2-3 days a week, like doing a lot of admin stuff, seeing sort of behind the scenes of how a lot of these productions happened, like got off the ground, like all the steps involved, because it's a lot more than what most people realize. goes into it. It really is a full-time job, just producing these shows, which definitely has helped us get to where we are.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael's definitely helped out heaps.
Well, one of the signature things that you guys are known for is selling out your shows, and I like the fact that essentially you've turned around and said, well, what does the audience want? And you've delivered that. So your kids show, the Greatest Magic Show, you haven't said, I'm going to do these tricks and the kids will like it. You've said, what sort of things do the kids want? And you deliver what the kids want. And the same with your adults only magic show. You're catering to the audience, and that really shows in the reactions and responses you get from the crowds.
Yeah, definitely. We sort of just took it as like, all right, what do we want the show to be, right? And we wanted it big, right? We wanted it bold. We wanted to say everything we need to say from the poster, right? So we could essentially put up all these posters all around, and people would know instantly what they're getting from that show, which we got lucky in a way with the Greatest Magic Show. Like when we first did it, it was like straight out the bat. And then we didn't even realize what we had stumbled on really from like 2018 Magic Festival, and then seeing all these shows. So we're like, oh, wow, okay, we're really onto something here. And then that obviously led to Melbourne Fringe later that year. And then we eventually got into Fringe World in Perth, and then the whole cycle sort of started. And then Adults Only showed up a year later. We were fumbling around with The Showman, like sort of making it like a family show. We wanted it accessible. But then in the end, we just it was sort of like a eureka moment. Like, let's go 18 plus. Like, let's just stop trying to, because we had all these ideas to bring in like adult related themes and swearing and nudity and like things like that. But we're always like, oh, we can't, because we're still catering to a family. And I think once we made that decision to just, all right, this is 18 plus, this is kids.
And because we were doing the Greatest Magic Show for so many years before that, we were silly, bubbly, happy, crazy, sort of magic stuff for so many years. And then we started doing The Showman Live, we called it. And as Sam said, it was very kind of still family, but we really wanted to take it to a direction where we could do whatever we want, we could say what we want, we can reference anything we want, and that's where the Adults Only sort of thing came from it.
And there's a definite connection with your audience there. They seem almost refreshed that they get to really relax and just enjoy a beer and watch the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And going back to what you were saying, like the Greatest Magic Show is obviously we want families who are out on school holidays with their kids, like not specifically after a magic show per se, but they want something really fun, really engaging, really interactive. And that's what we try and deliver. And same with Adults Only, like, there's people who are out a night out with friends, with a date, they're just having a few drinks and want to go see a show that they can relax, they can laugh. And it's, we're not trying to deliver anything that's like really serious or even like over the top funny. It's just like, just a laid back show, right? Like we have a lot of energy, we encourage a lot of energy from the audience, and that's what we deliver.
And I guess the big test was taking it over to Edinburgh. You really had no idea how it was going to be received after working all these crowds.
No idea. And it's funny how things work out. Like it was just sort of like, it just all happened. Like, it went from having the Greatest Magic Show, we did Perth, we did Adelaide, and then we're like, all right, Edinburgh's the biggest one, because we always hear like there's Perth, Adelaide that are second and third, but Edinburgh's the first. And we're like, all right, we have to go there. And then I just filled out an application online, right? We had like good images that we'd gotten from Perth, Adelaide, and earlier on with the Greatest Magic Show, we had all the logos and posters, obviously. We sent all that over, and we got an offer for a full month of shows, right? It was like 24 shows in 22 days, like 22 shows in 24 days. Obviously, like way more than we had ever done before. And we went over there, and we had no idea how anything works there, right? We had no idea. I even went up to Michael one of the days, and he was like, I've never done shows in UK. Like, we were sort of brand new to this. So we just sort of explored everything. Like, we got a good publicist over there, and we're like, well, let's just do what we can and find out what works. And well, fortunately, it was well received over there as well. And we learned a shitload while we were there as well, which we were ready to put in to this year, which unfortunately got cancelled as well. But Edinburgh was a big test for us, but it sort of showed the strength that was in the show, that it really could play. It was very universal in the audience that it was aimed at.
So you mentioned in Edinburgh you had a publicist. Most of the people who are working with the Melbourne Magic Festival will tend to just try and sell their own show, do their own publicity, just put it up on Facebook and hope that just being a Facebook event is enough. But I guess through working with Michael, you've learned a lot more about the other side of the business.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like even when I was working with Michael, like it was only like the last year or two that publicist became a big part of his work, right? And like a lot of people, you don't need it. Like you can do the work. You can put your show up on all those free listing sites. You can do all your social media. You can push media releases to all these news outlets yourself, right? Like you can write up your own press release. You can do all that stuff, but it is quite time consuming. And one of the great things about publicists is that they have connections in that area. Like going over to the UK and Edinburgh, it was paramount that we do that because we knew no one there, right? We didn't know the first thing. We didn't know what was a big newspaper to a small newspaper, big publication, whatever. So it's always worth, I think in Melbourne, you can sort of get away with doing it yourself just because you're from there, like you sort of know how things work. If you go interstate and overseas, it's very much worth having someone from that area who deals with a lot of shows, who has these contacts already. And it just sort of skips over that like relationship building part of like approaching these newspapers and media outlets and stuff. If you bring someone onto your team who already has those relationships, it's a lot easier to get in there and get the publicity.
But publicity alone is not enough to sell the tickets though.
No,
we leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
We do literally everything we can.
Yeah.
If someone, like we do free shows at primary schools. Like if we're in Melbourne, we were even going to fly to Perth like a month earlier so we can do free primary school shows throughout. So we'll lock in 8 or 9 primary schools and then go do them over 8 or 9 days and just promote the show like crazy. It's a 20-minute free show and promote it like crazy. But then we go on Facebook, we spend hundreds of dollars on Facebook. I think if someone gives us a new idea, we'll try that as well. The publicists was just one of those things that someone taught us, and then we went, okay, we need someone who's really good and we're willing to do what we have to do to sell as many tickets as we can.
Yeah, and publicists just one piece of the puzzle, obviously. Yeah. Like, you know, there's social media, there's newspapers, there's radio, there's a lot of different things that you can do, and it changes all the time, right? Like there's not one formula to follow, there's not one process, and a lot of it comes from trial and error, which some cases can be very expensive, you know, like putting your money to certain publications. Because when I'm producing shows like this, the emails are just flooded with every type of new media outlet trying to sell you advertising or like, you should do this, you should do this, and you just don't have enough to invest in everything. And for us, it was just about finding what works best for our show and for our audiences. So, yeah.
Well, it is a full-time job, much more full-time than most of the performers understand. And you guys have really nailed it. You really work very hard. But now you've got plenty of time on your hands. So what are you doing and what are you going to be doing in future?
We have so many ideas. Again, we're trying to leave no stone unturned with this as well. We've contemplated doing, you know, like releasing our shows on the internet, like you can rent them and things like that. So we've talked about doing Instagram stuff, like teaching a magic trick every day, things like that. Like we've got so many ideas. We don't know 100% which ones we're going to go for, but we'll see how we go. It's all ideas at the moment, but we'll see which ones we dive into.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just using this time to like before we did this earlier on today, we pretty much got a whiteboard out and we're like, all right, what's everything that we want to do and what we want to upgrade and like new projects we want. So it's everything from like designing new costumes for us in our kids show to new show ideas that we want to do to like new video series that we want to put out like during this period. So yeah, we've pretty much made a list and we want to start chipping away on that. Pretty much all the things that we had talked about doing but never had time to actually do is what we're trying to get done during this period. So when we do come out the other side, we haven't just been, you know, sitting around, like we've been able to improve the show and yeah.
Unfortunately, we have the warehouse to go to with no distractions because a lot of the time he would go to my house and we'd sit there and brainstorm in my little office, or we'll go to his house and we had a little studio there as well. But then we were like, you know, we've got so many props now. We've got so many distractions. I've got roommates. He's got family. So we decided to get a warehouse we can focus all our attention to what we want to do and where we want to go.
Well, it sounds like you're really using your time wisely during this lockdown. And thank you for spending a little bit of time with us.
Pleasure. Pleasure very much.
I shall catch you another time. Bye-bye.
Definitely. Thanks,
Tim.
Thanks, Tim.